So today I'm going to talk about how to clean microscope optics, and in particular how to clean microscope objectives and optical filters. And this is something that is an important technique to know because it's pretty easy to get optics dirty, particularly if you're using oil immersion objectives. You tend to accumulate old oil on objectives. You can also smear oil on air objectives that aren't supposed to have oil on them. Those are probably the two major sources of dirt that we see here. Before you go to clean your objectives, it's best to check the manufacturer's recommendations. Different manufacturers recommend different methods of cleaning their objectives, and in particular different solvents or cleaning products to use. So what I'm going to recommend here are what we like to use for our Nikon objectives, but if you have a different microscope, you may want to be using some other cleaning product. So the first thing to do is to inspect your objectives and see if they need cleaning. So we can take off an objective from the scope here, and then take a look at it. And the first step is just to inspect it by eye. You can look at it, see if it looks like it's dirty. You can look through it, see if you get a good clear image through it. It's hard to do this with these high magnification objectives, but for low mag objectives, looking through them is an easy way to spot dirt. And then for these high mag objectives, which have these small lenses, one useful technique is that you can pull off the eyepiece of the microscope, and if you look through it backwards, it makes a very good magnifying glass. And so you can use that then to get a close-up inspection of the front element of this objective and see if it's got oil or dirt or other debris on it. So to clean this, I'm going to put it down on the table, get a piece of lens paper here, and then peel off a single sheet of lens paper, being careful to only handle it by the edges, not by the center, because I don't want to get fingerprints and oil from my fingers on the objective. So you take your lens paper, handling it by the edges, and then the way I like to clean objectives, these Nikon objectives, is using xylene or chloroform to remove the oil, followed by methanol for cleaning up any residue left behind by those solvents. And in all cases, I use the spectrophotometric grade of the solvent. So to clean this, you put the lens paper down on the objective, take your solvent here, and then put a single drop on the objective, and then pull the lens paper gently from side to side so that you wick off the solvent along with any dirt on the objective. Can take a look at it in between. I can see this is now much cleaner. And then I'll just repeat with methanol. And that's how you clean an objective. For objectives like this air lens here, where the front element is recessed, the lens paper trick doesn't work so well because it doesn't get into the concave part of the lens. And so for those, I like to use cotton swabs. You can either buy commercial cotton swabs, the glue-free ones are best, or you can make your own just by taking pure cotton and twirling a little wooden stick in it to pick it up. But otherwise, the cleaning procedure is the same. We're just going to use a swab instead of the lens paper. So again, I'll wet my swab with solvent, and then just go in here and gently swipe across the surface of the lens using a new surface of the cotton swab each time. And again, I would repeat with methanol to remove any residue from the xylene until that objective is clean. For air objectives, if they don't have oil on them, you also want to use a blower first to remove any loose dust so you don't scratch the objective. If the objective is oily, this is not terribly helpful because the oil will stick the dust in place. But if it's not, it's generally good practice to use a blower like this one to blow off any loose dust on the surface of the objective. Another useful way of checking these, in addition to looking at them with a magnifier, say, is also you can look through the objective at a distant object and see if there's blur or dirt, which you can see as just streaks or aberrations in the image. That works better for low magnification objectives than high magnification ones. So that's the basics of cleaning objectives. It's good practice to do this routinely, particularly for oil objectives, which tend to build up residue and gunk. One other point worth bearing in mind is that these solvents that we're using here are really designed for removing oil from objectives. If your objective has been dirtied with, say, tissue culture media or some other water-based substance, then you'll want to use water, maybe with a little bit of soap in it, to remove that residue, and then follow up with distilled water and then methanol probably to get the cleanest lens. Some manufacturers also recommend using sparkle window cleaner, or they have custom cleaning products you can use for their objectives. So now I want to talk about cleaning filters. And we're going to talk about cleaning two different kinds of filters. So here we have a filter that's mounted, so you can see it's mounted in this black ring. And we'll want to clean that slightly differently than an unmounted filter. So let me get a piece of lens paper to put these on. So again, we use lens paper here to avoid getting them dirty. So there's a mounted filter, which is mounted in this metal ring. Here's an unmounted filter now, which doesn't have that ring around it. It's just a piece of glass. And so this you want to be especially careful of, because putting it down, there's no metal ring for it to rest on. For the unmounted filter here, we can use the same lens paper trick we used for the objective. Actually, first I want to blow it off. Again, remove any loose dust here. So clean off dust. And now we'll take a piece of lens paper, again handling by the edges, and then use a little stick here and put a drop of solvent on the optic. And then again do this drag mopping technique to gently drag the solvent off, pulling any dirt with it. And the stick is here just to keep the lens or the filter from sliding around as I do that. That technique does not work on these mounted filters because you can't get the lens paper in close contact with the filter everywhere. So here again we're going to use cotton swabs. Again, blow off any dust so we don't scratch it with dust on it. Then put it down on our lens paper, take a clean swab. You always want to use a clean cotton swab here so we don't transfer dirt from one optic to another. Moisten it with solvent. And then gently, using a spiral motion, clean it from the center to the outside, just removing any residue or dirt on there. And that's how you would clean a filter.